host, Joy Tarbert. My House to Yours, brought to you in part by Struble Drug.
I have a space of my own. Hi, everybody. Glad you could drop in. You know, I'm good. I have a special guest with me. Anyway, Joanne is her name. If you want to know who it is, I know you're saying, "Who is that?" That's Joanne Riddle, and she's from over Crestline. But more important, she had not more important that you're from Crestline, but as important. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
She is a chemical dependency counselor for Richland Hospital. And since we're doing kind of a focus on substance abuse on our Thursday night special this week, our town meeting, I wanted to have Joanne in to talk about what gets right down to the heart of all of us, and that's the problem itself. You know, we're going to be talking about issues on Thursday night, but there's other stuff that I want to know about. And if you've got anybody in your family, we're talking alcohol, we're talking drugs, we're talking, it's not a substance, but I found out that they have a gambling clinic. Is that what you would call it? What do you call it?
We have in-house treatment for gamblers.
A gambling program to help.
Yeah, gambling addictions.
Now, let's go back to basics on this. You work hands-on, don't you, with people?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Say I'm a parent of what scares me more than anything else is down in grade school now. I understand that the drugs are.
Yes,
Right?
definitely.
Now, what should I look for? I mean, is there something that you know, a lot of parents, the kids will come up, they'll say, "Well, I had no idea that they were on drugs until it was too late." Is there something that you can see in a kid early on, Joanne, or is there some signs that we can look for?
There sure are. I'll tell you what, if you have a child and you know your child, and that child's behaviors start to change in extreme ways.
What do you mean, like what?
Okay, for instance, you have a child that makes normally good grades in school, and all of a sudden their grades start to slip. A child who always came home on time, and all of a sudden starts being tardy, getting home at night, stays out all night, starts withdrawing to their room, not being able to function within the family any longer. Those are all signs.
You mean like argumentative type things within the family? Or?
Rebellious.
But see, a lot of people, I think, if they've got like 13, 14-year-olds, they think, well, this is part of being that 13 and 14-year-old.
You know, that to an extent, all 13 and 14-year-olds do go through some extreme
We
changes.
all did, if you remember. I mean, it's longer for me to remember 13 than it is you, but I can remember going through, you're not quite old enough to be an adult, but you're too old to be a child.
Start watching things like who your children hang out with.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of people are they? What kind of situations do they surround themselves with?
Well, now, where do kids this age get money for drugs?
That's easy from us, most of the time.
You mean they steal or what?
Sure, they still. And then after a period of time when they start getting into the disease heavily of addiction, they will start selling, turning over drugs, they call it, turning some drugs over to supply their own drug habits. And it's real easy for a child these days to obtain drugs. Very easy.
You know, Joanne, our Steve would have graduated in 73. Well, that'd be what, 20 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Anyway, at that time, he told me that most of the kids in high school knew what locker they could go to get drugs if they wanted it. And that's 20 years ago, and drugs weren't near as prevalent as they are now. So it's common knowledge to the kids in the schools, apparently,
Yeah,
of where they can get it.
sure. And even the children that aren't using can generally tell you where to get it. I would venture to say that most parents, if they sat down and really had a conversation with their sons and daughters that are high school age or junior high school age, and asked them the question, do you know where you could get drugs? They'd be able to tell them.
Well, he wasn't a user, but boy, he knew where they were.
Yeah.
What do they usually get hooked on first? Is there early drug and then you go on into heavier stuff, or?
Well, that could be due to situations and circumstances. The most available drug we have is alcohol.
You know, I don't think people think of that being a drug.
Alcohol is a drug. It's a mind-altering chemical. When it is put into your body, it changes your personality, it changes your ideas, it changes your morals. It's a drug.
Oh, yeah, it really is. Well then, okay, we're talking alcohol here. We got all these cocaine and, well, LSD for a long time was the biggie.
Right. LSD is still on the streets.
Is it really?
Acid is very prevalent in our society today, especially in our
Didn't it
community.
kind of die out for a while? Well, not maybe die out, but it wasn't as the popular drug to be taking.
Right. It kind of went on the back burner for a while, but
Yeah.
it was always there. Yeah.
See, that's the kind of thing I have difficulty understanding. Alcohol, for some reason or other, I can understand. Chemicals like cocaine and LSD and those type of things that I have seen birth defects from in people who do, I can't understand why they want to put this in their body. I have difficulty with that.
Okay. Well, I think the process begins when they're at the experimenting stage of their life. They hear about it and their friends talk about it. So they make a decision that maybe they'd like to try it.
See what it really feels like?
Yeah. And guess what? It makes them feel good. Addicts aren't addicts because they like drugs. They're addicts because they like the feelings. That's what we're talking about, feelings.
Well, now, alcohol would be the same. I've heard people say the same thing about alcohol.
Exactly. And there are birth defects and a lot of consequences to alcohol use, especially during pregnancy. We have fetal alcohol syndrome, where a child is born and has problems and defects due to the fact that their mother ingested alcohol during the pregnancy in extreme amounts.
Yeah, we're not talking about somebody had a glass of wine with dinner.
No, we're
We're
talking
talking about extreme amounts of alcohol.
right, extreme amounts. Drinking a lot of alcohol on a daily basis.
Well, we're talking about that. Let's when we're dependency and abuse. We were talking about this before we went on the air. I think a lot of us have in our mind really a wrong description of this or a wrong definition of it.
Exactly. Well, I think what I'd like to say first is that not everyone that drinks or uses drugs in any form, marijuana, smokes a joint, whatever it is, they're not necessarily an alcoholic or an addict. They could be an abuser.
But what's the difference? I mean, if you use it, you use it.
Well, for one thing, alcoholics and addicts are almost, I like to believe, I'm going to take this into a personal concept here. I believe that we have something different. An alcoholic or an addict has something different in their processing of alcohol and drugs. They become, the words that streets would call it would be hooked. They become physically, mentally, emotionally in need of this drug.
Like they feel their brain is telling them that they are not going to function without it, right?
Exactly. In late stages, they can't function without it because their body would actually go into physical symptoms of withdrawal. They would not be able to function without it.
Well, okay, so you get a high when you're on this stuff, but when you come down, it must be an awful blast to come down off of this, and then you feel lousy, or do they just stay on that high?
Well, as long as they can financially support it, most of them like to just stay high. If you never have to come down, you don't have to feel that sensation of coming down.
Well, you know, we've seen these documentary films on where it shows somebody come down going in with withdrawals and everything, and oh my gosh, it has to be awful. I mean, the absolute physical torment that they have to go through, you know, coming down off of a drug situation that I don't think I can truly feel the pain that they have to be going through, but I can see it. I can see it.
I think I'd like to stick in at this point too, Joy. It's very important to know that not everybody that is an alcoholic or an addict necessarily goes through withdrawal when they go off drugs and alcohol too. They may have the psychological effects, but not the physical effects. See, there's no standards when it comes to alcohol and drugs.
So there's no 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 thing necessarily.
No. Each person has just like everybody's an individual in this world. What happens to them as a result of their drug and alcohol use may also be individual.
Okay. We got to take time for a break, and then we're going to be right back. Don't go away. We'll be back with Joanne. So cut me on this one. Well, I got interested in what she's saying. Don't point your finger at me. Okay, make this one 6 minutes in. Or 7 and 7. Okay. Such a smile. Okay, we're talking with Joanne Riddle, and we're talking about probably one of the prime subjects that people kind of, well, I'd like to talk about it, but I don't know that much about it, so I'll kind of get away from it. And in our rural community, the drugs aren't prevalent, so I don't have to worry about it. It's in Toledo, and it's in Columbus, and it's in the bigger towns. Now, this is what really sets me on the edge of my chair, because unless you have been in Zombabamba someplace, there are probably drugs there too, if there is such a country.
They may have came from there.
Yeah. But you see, through Richland Hospital over there, you must have, I mean, there are people from Crawford County, from all our viewing area. They go over there for treatment. All ages, are we talking about?
All ages. You know, I think the biggest problem when it comes to people getting help for addictions is the fact that everybody has a preconceived idea of what an alcoholic or an addict looks like, or who a person is.
It's not stamped on their forehead.
No, but they got this mental picture of the wino laying on the street corner with the wine bottle in his hand, you know. Well, that's not really the case. They are alcoholics by all means, but we have a lot more that are alcoholics. Alcoholics come from every phase of life.
Now, is alcohol a more abused substance than what drugs are?
I think in the past it was, but I feel, I see more and more that cocaine and crack seems to be running pretty close.
Cocaine seems to be, I mean, you read all these, well, on the news you see all these busts on the cocaine is coming into the area, you know, and it just boggles your mind to think that there's that much of that drug out there that it would affect our area. You know, you think Florida, okay, it's coming through there. But we're talking Crawford County, we're talking Huron County and Wyandotte County. Mm-hmm. These are little USA towns that you don't think about that coming into.
We're talking about our neighborhoods.
Right, next door maybe.
Next door, down the street, uptown, on the corner. Drugs are there.
How do we help? Yes, you work direct hands-on with the person who is addicted.
Yes.
Addicted, am I using the right word?
Yes, and addicted, yes.
Because I'm afraid of using the wrong terminology on it because they change it on me every so often. All right, that person, yes, they are getting treatment. They can go to such and such a place and get treatment. Hopefully that it will help them get through whatever they have to deal with. But what about the families? This has to be a ripple effect, Joanne.
We call alcoholism and addiction a family disease. It affects every member. Any person that cares about, loves, an addict, an alcoholic, is affected by that disease.
But how do we get an alcoholic to admit that they are an alcoholic? My father was an alcoholic, but not according to his terms. He would never admit that he was an alcoholic, but we knew it.
Well, I think that probably it's a good idea not to try. An alcoholic and an addict is a very self-controlled person.
Mm-hmm.
And they will not take the idea from another person that they're an alcoholic and addict.
They almost resent this, don't they? And especially if it's a family member.
Right. That can actually it can be used as an excuse to drink.
Really?
Yeah, sure. Well, if you're going to accuse me of it, I might as well do it.
I suppose.
Okay.
I mean, like I told you, my dad worked at the same job for 45 years. Never missed a day because of any drinking or anything like. He never drank when he was going to work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was always. So he was a functioning alcoholic.
Most of the people in treatment today are functioning alcoholics.
But you try to tell him that he had a problem with it. He didn't have any problem. You had the problem because you thought he had a problem.
Right.
Does that sound familiar?
Oh, sure. There's a term we like to use when people come into treatment, and they talk about I did this and I did that. We call it terminal uniqueness. They believe that they are the only person in the world that have ever done the things they've done.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so the first thing that we can do for them is to allow them to know that they're not unique.
That there's a whole basket full of them,
Yeah.
huh?
alcoholics and addicts become proficient at lying.
Yeah?
They become proficient at hiding, covering up.
Well, you hear of instances where, especially with, alcohol is the one thing I could relate to there, where they have it stashed. My dad used to have it stashed in his workshop,
Yeah.
you know. Like he thought no one knew that it was there. We do.
Well, reality is, when a person gets to the place where they start having a stash, and when that first drink is the thing they think about the most in their life, you know, they're at work and they're watching the clock, it's 3 o'clock and they don't get off till 5, and all they can think of is, boy, at 5 I can go get a drink. Well, that's our late stage alcoholism.
Okay, then I can remember when he'd bring home at that time I think they were 8-packs, but anyway, the little bottles, and he would set those on the table, and he opened one and drank it down straight, and then he would be opening the second one it was almost like he couldn't get it into his mouth fast enough. And yet my dad was a very intelligent person, you know, a very together man, and I admired him so much in so many ways, but he had this, I don't want to call it, well, it is a weakness.
Well, that's putting it more or
A
less.
flaw.
He had a problem.
He had a problem.
He was a sick person. That's what we're talking about, sick people.
But they can be helped, correct?
Oh yeah, they can be helped. You know, a person who walks in and they start, you know, okay, they know, they have it pre-counted in their head how much it's going to take to get them to the level they want to fill.
So they know that if it's somebody that drinks, let's say, drinks whiskey, they know that 6 shots or whatever it is will get them to the buzz level that they want to be.
For a while.
Then it takes more?
And then it takes more. As our disease progresses, our need for more and more arises. So what used to take 2 or 3 drinks now takes 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. What used to take 1 joint now takes 2 joints. So our tolerance level gets higher and higher, so we have to take more in to get the same feeling we're seeking, and that's what it's all about, is feeling what I want to feel.
Then how do we help the family? I mean, are there programs where a family can, first of all, is there, I guess I'm going at it wrong, Eric. Is there a way that a family can contact somebody and talk to them before the approach to the person with the problem? Because they may not know the proper way of doing it, you know, or if there is one.
Okay, there certainly is. What I'd like to say now is that an alcoholic, an addict, gets help when they've had enough personal problems in their life and paid enough prices for their disease.
When they hit the bottom?
That's called hitting the bottom. When they have lost enough and felt enough pain, and they've made a decision for themselves that they need help. You know, so many times wives and husbands, I don't want to make this sound...
It's either way.
It goes either way. Well, stand on the idea that if my husband loves me enough, or if my wife loves me enough, she'll quit. That's not the case.
so.
Not so.
Hang on to that thought. We got to take time for a break, and we'll be right back. We're going to kill this.
Kill the fly.
Did I get him? Let's see. I have a fly. Okay. Okay, we're talking about the family. I know that we've got people watching us, Joanne, that probably has this person in their family, and they're thinking, how am I going to help them? What's the first step that I should do that's not going to make them so mad at me? You know, they don't want to raise the ire of the person who is addicted, and yet they want to help them.
Going along with that, Joy, also is the fact that a lot of other problems arise because of the addiction, too. And we have that code of secrecy among families where they're not allowed to talk about what's going on within their home.
Mm-hmm.
Abuse happens. All 3 forms, physical, mental, and emotional
Verbal,
abuse.
yeah.
You can almost guarantee that if a person is living with an active addict, alcoholic, They're being abused, at least emotionally, because they're living with pain on a daily basis, disappointment, frustration. They've got all this stuff happening inside of them. They don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, they've got it bottles, they're all bottled up, but there's no outlet for it.
They have no control in their life. Their life's out of control. Everything that's happening in their family is focused around the addict. What kind of mood's he going to be in tonight? If he drinks one more, he's going to go over the limit. You know. So what begins to happen is that's when the family gets real sick. That's when the wives and husbands and the children, and the parents, in the case of the child being the addict, start suffering the same disease of addiction. They become addicted to the alcoholic and the addict. They start doing all kinds of persuasions and bargaining and all kinds of things to try to get this family member to stop using, and it doesn't happen. And then they start getting frustrated and angry, but they still don't know what to do. Our resolve in this is this: you have to turn it over.
What do you mean, turn it over?
Okay. Seek help for yourselves.
You're talking about the family members.
Yes,
now.
the family members, the wives, the husbands, the children, the parents. Get help for yourself. Get your life back in kill. Make decisions for yourself to make your life happy again. In the process of doing that, you are also helping that recovering addict. One of the worst things that we can do for one of the very worst things that I think that you can do to an active addict alcoholic is enable them. Make excuses for them.
What do they mean by codependent?
Codependent is just exactly what I was talking
About
about.
the enabling? Is that it, or?
Codependency is, as the word says, codependent. That person is not addicted to a substance of a chemical or alcohol, but they're addicted to the person that is addicted to the substance and alcohol.
So they're doing the enabling. They're making the excuses, they're covering up,
Yeah.
So that lets the alcoholic still have a freewheeling. They can drink what they want to and do what they want to, but that person will cover up for me.
Yeah, and it can be such simple things that can be covered up so easy. Like, for instance, the man who's missed the 4th day of work this month and doesn't want to call off again, so he has his wife do it. Call in and tell him I'm sick. She knows he's not sick. She knows he's got a hangover or he's still half drunk. Okay, that's enabling.
So she's enabling. I mean, she's helping him stay a drunk. I mean, that's not a very nice term to use, but it's true.
Exactly.
Now, we're talking alcohol. I think of alcohol mostly on the adult level because that's where I relate to it. But we've also got young people that are getting hooked terribly with alcohol, aren't we?
Yes. We have children who are alcoholic. The questions say, can a child or a teenager, a young teenager, be an alcoholic? Oh, yeah.
Have you seen them?
Oh, I've seen them. Yes, Joy, I've seen them.
Do they want to, at that age, is everything mature enough for you to get through to them to say, you got to get a hold of it, and you're the only one that can do it, and let us help you? Or do you have to kind of hit them over the head with something?
Do you know, several times I've been listening to your show, and I've heard in the morning, and I've heard people call in and talk about if you're a good enough parent and you raise your child right, you know, they're going to grow up and they're going to be good people. So what happens to these parents? We believe in our society that if we're good parents and we do a good job, our children will grow up to be good people too. So when that doesn't happen, oh boy, guess what happens to that parent?
They fall apart.
They fall apart. They feel like failures. If nobody wants to believe their child can be an addict. They don't want to know that their child's on drugs. We want our children to be productive society people.
Yeah, with a star, you know, I mean.
Sure,
yeah.
getting the straight A's and everything.
Good kids.
Good kids. But that's not reality. Reality is we have addicted children coming from some of the best homes, very spiritual-filled homes.
And you wonder why that this has been able to raise its evil head into their lives.
Yeah. I think you could refer to the prodigal son story in the Bible if you really want to talk about it. Parents can't be responsible for their children's behaviors. They can teach them values and morals, but the one thing that the parent can do is they can set limits on what they will tolerate in their home.
This is it, huh?
Yeah, this is it. We're not going to tolerate it. And by covering up for our child, you know, when he's starting to get in trouble with legal issues, you find your child starting to end up in juvenile court, being arrested for shoplifting, missing school, truancy. We want to protect our children. That's what they tell us our job is, to protect our child. And we don't want our child to hurt. But just like with the adult, one of the best medicines for an alcoholic or an addict is pain, because pain is what gets them to treatment. Letting a person pay the price for the deeds they do.
They gotta face up,
They've got to face up.
which is not easy.
It's not easy, and especially you and I are mothers. We know that feeling of protectiveness we have for our children. We don't want them to feel pain.
And even, I would expect that even though one side of you is saying, oh, just one more time, I'll get him out of this, or I'll protect him over that, just one more time. And then another time, it's just one more time. In your heart, you really know
Sure.
that, no, this is it, they should be, I'm gonna have tough love.
Tough love. Yeah.
Tough love. And we're all human. We all feel it. I mean, I bet you there's not a mother out there that doesn't feel the same thing we're talking about, you know, that they're going through situation. It may not be with alcohol, it may be with another substance.
Yes.
But they're both, any drug or an alcohol problem is a problem. There's no definition between them. You know, we've run out of time. I haven't even scratched the surface yet, but we've run out of time. But we're going to have Joanne back for another show. And I do hope that what we've given you today in information has, if it helps one person, Joanne, just one person, whether it be a parent or whether it be a young person, it's been well worth our time.
Yeah. Joy, if it's okay, in closing, I'd like to give some phone numbers.
Okay, real quickly here, listen. You got them there?
I've got them somewhere
Okay.
in my pile of papers here. Yeah, here we go.
Okay.
All right, if there is somebody out there who feels or suspects they may have a problem with alcohol, or a family member, community counseling services in Bucyrus have help available for you. 562-2000. In Gallion, 468-3010. You might want to call Freedom Hall in Crossline, 683-1212. And my hospital, Richland Hospital, 1-800-221-HOPE.
That's easy. Thank you,
easy.
my dear.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow, the good Lord willing.